All right, so ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is podcast number 2 on Monday, September 27th, 2021, brought to you by both the Greenwich Stanford Tea Party Patriots and Yankee Tea News. So once again, it's been, shall we say, a busy week. Just before I get started, I want to add that Diane just told us about how Fred Camillo, the first selectman of Greenwich, has dropped the mask mandate in Greenwich, which I think took some people by surprise. Yet at the same time, 2 banks in Greenwich, one of which was Chase, turned around and imposed their own mask mandates for people to enter their businesses. So we're all kind of scratching our heads over that one. Meantime, a couple other things I want to throw in. Well, first of all, just to go through it quickly, we've got some Connecticut news to go over, a couple things that are national and a couple things that are global. And I'm going to call them all of concern in one way or another. Now, before I jump on that, I want to point out that we have been locked in a battle with the Greenwich Board of Education. However, well, first, you may notice this over here. This is dedicated to the parents who are terrified of the board. There are many who are quite concerned that that Dr. Tony Jones and Mr. Bernstein and others would act in a vindictive manner against anybody who speaks out against them. So they decide to keep their heads low. And it's, quote, the bold few that have been showing up, such as at the last meeting. So there's that. However, in the spirit of Christian tolerance and goodwill, we did put together a get well card for the Greenwich Board of Education. Okay? We'd like to be at least somewhat sympathetic and recognize that they may be having a few problems that they don't really have very much control over. So you can see this here, and let me just read what's in the card as well. Like this. So, we are sorry to hear that you got sick with critical race theory, social emotional learning, and DEI, diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Well, hopefully you will get well. It would be terrible if you got even more sick and had to resign. Love and kisses. And we do have a few people who have signed and a couple signatures. So if anybody else would like to sign this get well card for them, we would certainly welcome it. So I just had to throw that in. And then a quick shout out to a new group in Connecticut, called CT-RAM, which stands for Connecticut Residents Against Medical Mandates. Basically, they're functioning right now as a chat group and helping each other with questions relating to vaccine mandates and masks and all these other issues that just keep getting thrown in our faces. So there it is, ctram.com if you'd like to go check it out. You basically have to ask permission to be on there, and once you get over that hurdle, that you're able to communicate with all the members. So there's that. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. So, the gentleman here, Eric, who's handling all the hard technical stuff and is holding up the boom mic, was at the Hartford rally today in an effort to stop King Lamont from extending his emergency powers. The group was not as large as you'd like to be. It was Monday. People do work on Mondays. Just want to throw that in there. However, they were pretty vocal. They were pretty strident. We still don't know if their message got through to them. And certainly I sent a letter to my state representative and state senator. The state representative got back to me and just thanked me very much. So we'll see how this shakes out, because the fact of the matter is, if the Democrats go ahead and extend his powers, it's not going to go well. I think that it's just going to cause us to dig in our heels and be a lot more aggressive in how we deal with this situation.
Past 80 to 20 or 80 to 60.
Past 80 to 60. Well, what a surprise. So that's basically party lines. So the message, ladies and gentlemen, of course, is when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. That would be Thomas Jefferson. All right, so that's the latest on that. Meantime, Eric was also at the Meriden rally. This was apparently sponsored by Connecticut Free Press and the Connecticut Libertarian Party, and perhaps a couple other groups. So there were about 300 or 400 people there. and it was part of what was called the Connecticut Liberty Fest or Music Fest. And they had 3 bands there, so everybody had a good time. The idea that conservatives could have a good time, well, surprise, surprise. There you go. So it was another opportunity where people got to see each other, network, exchange information, learn from each other. It was very good. And then just a shout out also on Sunday, you had the rally in Prospect, Connecticut for the Trump One people, Debbie's Deplorables. So I suspect that went very well as well. And then now, the Greenwich Board of Education. So we have on Yankee Teen News a number of videos that Eric has put up on a number of speakers who presented. There was one named, was it Lori? Yeah, Lori. And she presented a very the best straight up discussion based on both the science and the law. And she cited Federal Trade Commission law that suggested that the law firm for the Board of Education has been giving the Board of Education, shall we say, bad advice. So we'll see how this shakes out. We still have a huge fight in front of us. And speaking for myself, I see 3 things here. 1, we want them to drop the mandates. That's fine. Number 2, this is my personal favorite. We'd like to see a mass resignation of all these evil cretins who are ruining our education. And if we can't get to the mass resignation, then we'll find a way to force a resignation. So that's on my hit list. Yeah, so then if you go to the Yankee Teen News YouTube channel, you'll see those videos there and other things. Okay, next, yes, the CDC forgot Connecticut. Oops. Yeah, so what happened was in January, we had this whole, January of 2020. So the pandemic concern started. It was not until April, January to April, it was not until April that the CDC even bothered to contact Connecticut with guidance. So I don't know, was that an oversight because we're a small state? I don't know. You let me know what you think. And I think it's an embarrassment to the CDC. It's further evidence that they are not a well-run organization.
Rhode Island is smaller than Connecticut.
Yes, nonetheless. Now, in the meantime, also I want to point out a number of these. The links are going to be on the YouTube channel website, so you can go to them. There was an article, Dr. Malone, let's be clear, was one of the co-inventors of the mRNA vaccine. Okay, one of the co-inventors. I believe he used to work for Pfizer. But as time passed, he became very much disaffected with the way this was going, parted company with Pfizer, and he's become a very vocal critic of mRNA vaccines. Now, for this, he's been tarnished as tarred and feathered, as an anti-vaxxer. And in this article that we cite, he makes it clear that he believes in vaccines. All his issues are just around the mRNA vaccine. All right. Meantime, one of the more worrisome situations, I believe, has been this fight to get to force mandatory vaccinations on members of the military. The status of that is a little unclear to me, but on I forget his name, Stuart Peters show, I think. We'll have that link too. He interviewed an active duty Marine officer who was explaining the lawsuits that they're working to bring against the federal government on this. So right now we're just going to call this a work in progress, and just we need to speak up as well on this and let people know, let the government know, let Austin Clark know, he's the Secretary of Defense, that what he's doing could not be more wrong-headed. So there's that, and then, oh yeah, the best part. So there's been a lot of back and forth about January 6th. I said a couple things last week about it, but now the FBI informants have been outed. The FBI has admitted that they had informants there and that they were actively involved in what was going on. And in fact, there's a claim that shows where one of the FBI informants was one of the first ones who had gotten into the Capitol building. So I think this is a story that's still unfolding. And as Darren Beatty of Revolver.News has said, this is What happened January 6th was a failed intelligence operation, all right? They expected to accomplish certain things. They were framing people, being deceitful, and all of that has failed. And their narrative is slowly unwinding, as the legal process moves along. And then, yeah.
One of the people that was awaiting trial died while he was in jail.
Oh, jeez. They're a special place in hell for those people. A special place. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to do these backwards. Just to quickly mention an interesting study that just came out showing that cooking oils can cause lung cancer. In particular, what they did was they looked at Chinese women who used woks, right, those big bowls to cook with. And apparently the Chinese use several different kinds of oils with which to cook. Sesame oil, peanut oil. The most popular one apparently is raw rapeseed oil. What we know, the refined version of rapeseed oil is what we know as canola oil. And what they found was women standing over these oils as they're cooking the breakdown products and the fumes actually increased the risk of lung cancer. Interestingly, because they looked at several oils, they also looked at peanut oil. Peanut oil had the lowest risk, while the raw rapeseed oil had the highest risk. So just had to throw that in. Meantime, a strange thing is happening. Major American corporations like Google, like Facebook, like, who am I leaving out? I guess maybe Amazon. They are Disney for sure. These are what we'll call American woke corporations. Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon have made the suggestion that these companies are going through a process where they're merging. It's hard to explain how this would be, but they're merging politically with the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so they made that assertion. Well, here's the other part that's kind of strange. You may have heard of a company called Evergrande, which is a major real estate developer in China. Well, they failed to make their debt payment. That puts them in arrears. It's a big company, I forget, $380 billion in assets or something. So there's an issue. Now, one had suggested that it's a company that was too big to fail, and as a result, there would be no repercussions. However, I don't see how that could hold up for long. The problem, of course, with a debt situation is you have a lot of people, they're all connected together in terms of like a string of debt. So if one falls, the other falls, and at some point, you've got yourself a financial crisis. So someone said that it's been $5 trillion that American companies have invested in China so far. Have we gotten our money back? I don't think so. So the other point is that as you have these woke corporations now trying to make common cause with the Chinese communists, underneath you have the economic situation threatening to fall apart. Well, what's that going to look like? See, one of the other problems here that hasn't been talked about, but Steve Bannon brings it up, is that all those pension funds, those 401ks, those IRAs, and other investment vehicles, many of them are heavily invested in China. So you might want to call whoever your representative is, your fiduciary, and ask him just what is going on as far as these investments are concerned. Because what China is going to do, as they've done in other cases, is that whatever is domestic, they will strive to save, and whatever is foreign, they're just going to cut it off and let it just fall into the financial storm. So you would do well to learn more about it. I think they got a link on this. We'll be putting out more on this. And also as a special note, we're going to put together a little research project. We're going to call up the hospitals in Connecticut, some of them, and we're going to find out how many COVID patients they really have in there, okay? Because if you have King Lamont wanting to extend his emergency powers and you have a handful of COVID patients in these hospitals, what the hell is going on? Well, on that happy note, thank you very much, folks, and see you next week. Okay, remember, go to our YouTube channel, Yankee T News. Also go to our website, yankeet.news. And we'd love to hear from you, like our Facebook page and all those good things. All right, thanks a lot.